Well, good morning and welcome to Elevenses. It's show 186. It's the 10th of November. I think I've actually put Sunday the 7th up, haven't I? But it's actually a Wednesday, of course. So what have we got for you today's show? Well, the Met Police are under fire for selling what appears to have been a 250 engined bike as a 125 to a rider who then subsequently died in a crash. A 73-year-old rider died in a freak accident after hitting a bird. Another inquest. BMW's CEO4 maxi scooter is due to arrive next year, and it will be electric. It looks like Kawasaki's Z650 RS, the bike that's only just been released, is to get a baby brother next year. And we'll finish off with a bit of a talking point here. China and India, as I've been mentioning, are already transitioning to electric motorcycles. Africa is now beginning to move too, and will Europe and particularly the UK be left behind? So we'll have a look at that, what's going out in West Africa at the moment. So settle yourself down, grab yourself a brew, stick with me for the next 30 odd minutes. Was my little banners there stuck completely? I've got rid of it. Don't forget, if you've got anything to say, comments, questions, I'm always happy to read those and answer them. If I can get back to you during the show, I will do. If I can't, I will respond after the show. So yes, anything you want to add, feel free. Right, okay, so let's start with that first story. The Met Police are under fire. They sold a bike which was registered as a 125, but it had apparently been fitted with a 250 engine. Now, the exact circumstances of that aren't clear. I'll come on to it in a moment. But the bike ended up in the hands of Marlon Vela, a 21-year-old, who was killed when he lost control of the machine and hit a tree. Now, the crash happened in April last year. The inquest has only just been held. That happened last week. And basically, it heard how Mr. Vela was rounding a bend at 55 miles per hour, mounted a curb, and collided with a tree. So how did he get hold of the bike? Well, it was purchased at a Met Police auction by Mr. Vela's father, and the logbook the inquest heard recorded the bike as a 125, but the engine fitted was a 250cc unit. Now, press reports, of course, aren't always very helpful when trying to get to the bottom of these things, and the bike is actually variously described as a scooter and a motorcycle, so I don't know which it was. The Daily Mail gave a photograph of a YBR 125 as being the model concerned, but no models involved offered up as part of the official account. Most of the reports talk about a scooter, so I suspect that the Mail may have got that wrong. But since the coroner said that the power of the bike was a contributing factor to his death, it's not entirely unpredictable that certain elements of the press have gone full-on shock horror on this, branding the incident a horror crash and on a souped-up death trap bike. The exact circumstances of the crash, however, are somewhat complicated too. Now, Mr. Vela was seen to overtake a car before hitting the curb and crashing into the tree, but in the moments before the incident, a police car on blue lights was behind him, although the driver said that he was responding to a separate emergency call and not following the bike. PC Smart, who was in the car, he said the bike was a bit of a blur as it sped off. I was shocked, PC Smart said. The bike must have been going at some speed because I was above the limit myself. The driver actually called it in as he thought the bike was making off. But the coroner confirmed by asking, at no stage were you pursuing the bike? And the response to that was no, sir. So moments later, the police driver actually came across the crash. Now, the coroner said that it's unclear whether Mr. Vela had actually reacted to the presence of the police, whether he'd been distracted by the lights and sirens, but in any event, he'd been going too fast around the bend. He also said that the power of the bike could have been a contributing factor, one of many, he said, to Mr. Vela's death, since he didn't know how powerful the machine was. The coroner said that he found that the black Yamaha scooter, so that's where the term scooter comes from, the actual inquest itself, with the same registration as Mr. Veller's, was actually seized by the Met Police in March 2019 when the original owner was found to have no insurance and no license for the bike. And the Met Police then processed the scooter for sale through an auction company. And then it went on to be bought by Mr. Veller's father, Emmanuel. And the coroner said the vehicle identification number was noted on the vehicle seized as being identical to the one on the scooter that Mr. Veller was driving. And he said that the vehicle was actually a 249cc rather than the 124cc, and that this discrepancy was not recorded by the Met Police. And he said the fact that the vehicle had been changed did not appear to have been picked up by anybody in the Met Police during the seizure process prior to the sale. It's clearly most unfortunate Marlon, through no fault of his own or his father's when purchasing the bike, came to be riding a 249cc scooter when the logbook showed it should have been a 124cc model. It might also be correct to say Marlon was inexperienced riding the 249cc model. It was possible this meant his ability to drive the bike at higher speeds around bends was diminished. Toxicology reports did show that Mr. Vell had cannabis in his system, which the coroner said would not have helped with his driving. So the question is, how did a 250cc bike come to be sold as a 125? Well, that's a very good question. It's going to be taken up with the police chief's counsel, and the coroner recorded a verdict of a road traffic collision on Monday. So there are obviously questions to be asked. One of the more obvious ones is, was the bike originally a 250, which was given the identity of a 125, or is it the result of an undeclared engine swap? It's not necessarily all that difficult on some bikes to do that. But whichever the case, it clearly slipped through the net. So that's a rather disturbing story there. Unfortunately, it wasn't the only fatal crash in the news feed this week, and another inquest in Huddersfield has heard how a 73-year-old motorcyclist died after being hit by a bird. Now, the incident actually happened near Bradfield, which is near Sheffield. William Jackson was struck on the helmet by a bird believed to be a grouse. Mr. Jackson was described as being a passionate biker and very fit, having run a marathon only last year. The inquest held at the coroner's court on Tuesday heard how he'd been riding his Yamaha on March the 30th this year and had just overtaken two cars when a bird flew out from the right-hand side of the road and it hit Mr. Jackson. Now, one of the witnesses described seeing him slump it in his vehicle and start veering off to the right and off the road. The bike then flipped, it threw him from the bike, and he landed on the other side of a fence. The inquest did hear there was nothing to suggest that Mr. Jackson had been driving too fast or carelessly on the road before being hit by the bird. There was no evidence of road defects or weather conditions which might have contributed to the crash. And sadly, despite attempts to administer CPR, he was pronounced dead at the scene. So in this case, Katie Dixon, the coroner, said he lost control in what she described as a freak accident. She said he was riding his motorcycle appropriately when he was struck by the bird, which caused him to leave the carriageway, and he died as a result of the collision. Now, personally, this did bring back a few memories. Many years ago, I hit a sparrow, actually, so a tiny little bird, and it actually came over the top of my fairing on the bike, and it caught me right on the brow of the helmet. It would have hit me full in the visor had I not actually ducked. Now, a sparrow weighs, I think it's about 2 ounces. For comparison's sake, a cricket ball is about 4.5 ounces. So a sparrow is about half the weight of a cricket ball. And, you know, I was doing probably about 70 miles an hour at the time, officer, and it damn nearly took my head off. So, you know, you can imagine being hit on the head by a cricket ball. That's why it's not just riders who wear helmets these days, it's actually cricketers too. There is a pretty big impact. Now, I've seen the result of an impact with a bird which has shattered a visor as well. And of course, there was that infamous incident involving, I think it was Ian Hutchinson at the TT when he hit a seagull on the circuit, and I believe there was also an incident on a MotoGP race at Phillip Island when somebody hit a seagull. So I've also clipped a couple of pheasants, and they are much bigger birds, much heavier, and they give you a distinct thump when you one of those just glanced off my shoulder. Not exactly highly mobile birds. They sort of lumber into the air a bit like a pheasant, a 747 taking off, watching a pheasant try to take off. So I'm interested to know if you've got any bird strike incidents of your own. I'd be interested to hear how they develop for you. On another note altogether, where's the photo gone? All right, I'll leave that. I'll bring that in one next week. I've just lost the photo, which I thought I'd set up for you. Right, okay, so don't forget, Science of Being Seen is going out on Wednesday, the 1st of September. The Breaking the Circle webinar was a week ago. It was reasonably well attended. Could have done with a few more people there, but hey ho. Some people couldn't make it till after the live event, so there were more people who watched it than actually appeared online. But I'll just remind you that the next live broadcast is actually going to be Science of Being Seen again, which will be on the 1st of December, which is the Wednesday. These talks are always going out on a Wednesday. It'll be at 8 o'clock as well. Now, as I've explained before, Science Being Seen has now been dropped from Bikerdown, largely due to the need to bring everything in Bikerdown in-house, as it's now been taken over by the fire chiefs themselves, rather than being left to be run by individual fire services. So I'm keen to keep Science Being Seen in the public eye, because I think gaining an insight into these all too common SMIDSy collisions is absolutely vital to all riders. So even if you've seen Science of Being Seen yourself, please spread the word to other riders, family, if you've got biking family, friends, anybody who may not have seen Science of Being Seen, because I think it is worth watching. Right, okay, so what else? Well, some months ago I mentioned that BMW's plans involved building, now the picture's come up that I wanted to show you, but I'll come back to that in a moment. Excellent. Right, okay. So I was talking about the electric maxi scooter, the CE4. Let's just pop that up. That is the right picture now. What a mess I've got myself into again this morning. The box on wheels styling certainly won't appear to anyone. It did look very much like a sort of a concept design rather than anything that would go actually out onto the roads. But it turns out that the bike is actually in full production. Truth be told, BMW say they are positioning the scooter as a part of its urban mobility line, but I'm a bit struggling to see exactly where it sits in that line. Now, the CE04, it has, there are two variants. So I'll talk about the full power variant for the moment. It comes with 31 kilowatt, which is 42 horsepower electric motor, which offers a 0 to 50 time in kph, that is 31 miles per hour, of 2.6 seconds, which isn't actually all that quick. The second strange thing is that the machine tops out at a fairly modest 120 kph, which is 75 miles per hour. Now, that top speed puts it firmly into the equivalent performance of the A1 light motorcycle bracket. If you think about bikes like the R125 Yamaha, they have a very similar top speed. Now, frankly, 125 performance might be sufficient for urban riding and sort of busy A-road commuting, but it does, I think, leave the bike a bit short of get up and go for motorway use here in the UK, let alone, I would have said, for German autobahns. And a bigger scooter like that presumably is likely to be used for longer trips, so I'm a little bit confused as to its targeting. Now, the other thing that caught my eye Bikes like the Zero are managing to deliver a mix of ever-increasing range with a decent top speed and relatively lightweight. So it's actually hard to see quite how it is that BMW managed to make this scooter weigh in at no less than 230 kilograms. That's 507 pounds. So that's as much as a sort of fueled up motorcycle, a much bigger motorcycle. Particularly as the battery capacity is a fairly limited 8.9 kilowatt hours, which gives it an equally limited range of 130 kilometers or 81 miles. So it's not like BMW actually providing anything out of the ordinary in terms of bodywork either. You do get the now obligatory ABS, and you also get automatic stability control on this machine, but dynamic traction control is actually an upgrade. Anything else? Well, it does come with a reverse gear, which you may or may not need if you drive headfirst into narrow parking spots and you need to back out. The small battery does mean that the 2.3 kilowatt charger offers 4-hour recharge time, and you can get an optional 6.9 kilowatt hour quick charger, and that'll shorten charging time to 1 hour 40 minutes. And it's said to provide a sort of a 20% to 80% boost in just 45 minutes. Home charging, you can plug it into a wall outlet or use a dedicated wall mounted charger, and you should be able to charge from public charging stations too. But as I said, that there were two versions, and this is the I think what is even an odder decision, because the second version that will be released actually has a reduced range and a reduced power rating. It goes just 100 kilometers, which is fraction over 60 miles, on a power rating of 23 kilowatts, 31 horsepower. Now, the bizarre thing is both bikes actually reach the same top speed of 75 miles per hour. So I'm really struggling to see the logic of the two bikes. Yes, exploiting a less powerful battery and a less powerful motor should allow for a reduced price option. But in that case, why neuter the top speed of the more powerful bike? Anyway, civilian versions of the bike are said to be already in production, but it seems that the first users to get their hands on the bike will be the police. That's a version with tactical storage, as it's called, lights, sirens, and that's where it's likely to enter service first. Now, consumers are likely to see the bike in the showrooms early next year. At a quoted starting price, which is presumably for the shorter range model, as it wasn't specified, US dollars 11,795. It remains, I would say, to be seen whether the futuristic styling will actually pull in the punters over the limited speed and range. The price isn't extraordinary by electric motorcycle standards, but it's still a lot more than a comparable petrol engine bike. And just to keep maxi scooter fans happy, the rumour mill is also suggesting that Suzuki are working on electric versions of their long-running Bergman range. The first Bergman to get the EV treatment is almost certain to be the 125 equivalent machine, and it's almost certain to be revealed in a couple of weeks' time. The Ys are saying that you can expect a price hike of about 20% over a similar IC engined model. Right, okay, don't forget, you can set a reminder for this show. It goes out every Wednesday and Sunday at 11 we're into not BST, we're into GMT now, aren't we? Of course. You can catch up on Facebook here, or you can head over to my YouTube channel, Survival Skills UK. Don't forget the all-important UK on the end of it, or you won't find the channel. All the 11s are up over there to be viewed after the event, if you so wish. Right, I'll just have a quick look at comments. We've just got Clive and Martin this morning saying hello. Nobody's revealed any interesting bird strike stories. I was hoping for one or two there. Hey ho. Maybe we'll come into those later. Right, okay, so what else is in the news today? Well, given the crossover between Kawasaki's 400 twins and their 650 twin ranges, it should be no great surprise to discover that the retro-styled Z650 RS is hotly expected to spawn a sibling. It will be given the same styling treatment, which borrows from the late 70s Z650. The Z400 RS is expected to be based on the Z400 naked, and it's likely to be seen at the Milan Motorcycle Show, EICMA, at the end of this month. So just to remind you what the 650 looks like, the chances are that the 400 will be very, very similar, although it's likely not to be appearing till the end of next year. It's likely, I would have thought, that they'll get it out as soon as they possibly can if the 650 proves a sales success, because the new model could be in production pretty darn quickly. Actually, many of the retro styling components on the bike, such as those rounded pod instruments there, the bars and the mirrors, of course, even the seat perhaps, certainly those rather lovely cast wheels. I do like those. They do look like classic spokes, but I actually rather find those rather attractive, and they can be lifted straight out of the parts bin, basically, for the Z650. The frame, forks, swing arm, rear suspension, and the ABS equipped front and rear brakes should come straight from the Z400, as will the 399cc motor, which is also incidentally found on the Ninja 400 sports bike. It's bang on the power limit of 35 kilowatts, 47 horsepower for the A1 license. It produced a decent 38 newton meters of torque. Said to be a little bit revvy to ride, but aren't all small bikes compared with bigger ones. And the 6-speed gearbox gets clutch assist and a slipper clutch. Something that the Z400 gets that I haven't seen on other bikes very often is an economic riding indicator. I have to admit, I do like little gadgets like that. I tend to keep an eye on the fuel consumption in the car while I'm driving, and it certainly should help most riders improve the fuel efficiency if that's their bag. Pricing is not available yet, but one guest suggests that the Z400 RS could cost around $400 more than the standard Z400, which is currently priced at $5,199 US. Right, okay, so Nick has also said hello. Good morning, Nick. So to round off, I'm just going to sort of tell you a little bit about what's going on with electric motorcycles in another part of the world. Now, I know I keep banging on about them, but they really are coming along at an incredible rate. I know there are plenty of riders out there who still think that electric motorcycles are decades away, but they are being increasingly rapidly adopted around the world. So this story today comes from Kigali, which happens to be the capital of Rwanda in West Africa. Now, in Kigali, almost half of all vehicles are motorcycles. Sorry, over half of all vehicles are motorcycles. Almost all of them are small capacity. They're relatively low-tech engine, which means that they produce fairly high emissions, even though they may not use much fuel. And many of them are actually ridden by motorbike taxi drivers. So a Rwandan firm, Ampersand, is aiming to get their riders away from petrol engine bikes and onto electric motorcycles. Now, at the moment, it really is a drop in the ocean, but they have provided bikes for 60 riders to make the switch. So DDA reports on his experience. And this is what he says. In the first days, things were not good because I was not used to riding e-motos. However, I went on working and soon I knew many things about how the bike works and how to ride it. Then I started saving more money. Now I like the bikes. An e-moto can last a long time without any problems, unlike an engine motor, and it goes well. It's very smooth to ride. So Ampersand actually hope that within the next 5 years they can make the switch to electricity for almost all of Rwanda's motorcycles. Now, it's a pretty ambitious dream because there are 25,000 motorbike taxis operating in Kigali alone. And as I said, if they provided 60 so far, it really is a drop in the ocean. And these bikes are ridden, for up to 10 hours a day. suspect that's probably an underestimate, but they do cover, sort of 100 kilometers plus on a daily basis. So their chief executive, Josh Whale, he says the simple engines lack the sort of costly emissions reduction tech you see in modern cars or in motorbikes in the global north. Meanwhile, they're being run for over 100 kilometers a day, so that's a lot of pollution, a lot of carbon dioxide. In Rwanda, drivers spend more in a year on petrol than the cost of a new motorbike. We've shown that we can offer, in the same style as their current motorbike, something that costs less to buy, less to power, and less to maintain. Ampersand says that savings on fuel and maintenance can double the driver's income. Now, there are an estimated 5 million motorcycles on the roads of East Africa, so there could be big savings in CO2 savings if Ampersand and its rivals can actually make a significant dent in the petrol engine market. So how do these things get onto the roads? Ampersand have 73 employees at the moment, and they put the bikes together in Kigali. The battery packs are actually manufactured abroad to their own specifications and shipped back to Rwanda for assembly. And they have set up 5 battery swap stations, which are already working in and around Kigali. And the firm says it can actually build around 20 swap stations for the price of one conventional petrol station. The project is moving forward. The company has actually outgrown its original factory and they're moving to a new facility this month. They pioneered a range of incentives to encourage e-mobility. They have arranged for capped electricity tariffs for the charging stations, and rent-free land for them, preferential parking, travel lanes for electric vehicles around Kigali, and restrictions on the age and emissions of polluting vehicles. So Rwanda itself is actually moving quite fast towards an electric future. Mr. Wales says, for the time being, we also happen to be a motorbike company with spare parts and maintenance. However, we'd be glad to work with the big existing petrol motorbike manufacturers on the vehicle side of things. We're still small and we want to move fast as the climate crisis demands and do some hard things quickly. So we're very happy to team up with big existing players where we can. They're not the only people working out in, I said West Africa earlier, I should have said East Africa. Volkswagen has been conducting an e-mobility pilot project in partnership with Siemens since 2019. And that basically means there are 20 electric Golfs and 2 charging stations in Kigali. And what they're saying is that the country actually has the potential to leapfrog internal combustion engines in cars altogether, because so many of the vehicles on the roads are actually motorcycles and not four-wheeled engines. They have this. It makes it a lot easier in some ways to make the jump to EVs. They are working, as they say, to make the e-Golf pilot a blueprint for electric mobility in Africa. For Ampersand, Rwanda is only the first step that they want to take in Africa. They already have launched in neighbouring Kenya, and they're aiming to set up in other countries soon. They admit there are challenges. There are a shortage of specialised skills. They still have disrupted supply chains across a lot of Africa. But Mr. Wales says that the continent can be a leader in the global shift to e-mobility. And one of the big changes is that venture capital investors have previously been reluctant to invest in the area, but Ampersand have just secured $9 million in funding from the US-based International Development Finance Corporation, which will enable them to significantly increase their activities. And what they say is this is actually a big step up in confidence for Africa's e-mobility sector. They will be able to scale up their number of bikes they have on the road to thousands rather than tens. It's part of a portfolio for innovation and contributions by the US to address climate change. They are adding that to a $4 million US dollar earlier investment, which was secured this year. They've also received early round, what's called seed funding from USAID's Development Innovation Ventures, but also the UK government Frontier Technology live streaming event. So there are other people looking to invest in Africa. And as Mr. Wales says, we hope we can show that the electric age is here for everyone, and clean mobility that's going isn't something that's just going to trickle down to the global south in a second-hand manner decades from now. Rather, it's cost-effective, fundable, investable now. Right, so I hope that's given you a little bit of an insight into what's going on in another part of the world in terms of electric vehicles. I know I do mention them quite frequently, but you know, I think we need to keep an eye on what's changing, and things are moving quite fast. Right, that's pretty much it for today. Don't forget that the Science Being Seen is out on Wednesday, the 1st of December. Do pop in, as I said. If you can't visit the site, I'm just trying to get the photo link back on screen. There we go. If you can't visit the show, you can always come along and read the book. There it is, The Science of Being Seen paperback. All funds from that are fed back into my work on the Science of Being Seen. So the book is an inexpensive £10. It will take you through the latest technology and innovations in terms of what we can do to help ourselves be seen. I've been talking about yellow lights online over the last day or two, but it'll flag up the visual perception problems and explain why drivers don't see motorcycles with conventional high-vis and day riding lights. And Steve Nesbitt has just dropped in to say MotoGP Phillip Island 2015 Andrea Iannone. Oh yes, of course it was, wasn't it? Yes, I knew somebody hit a seagull out there in a fairly spectacular incident. Right, thanks for that, Steve. Right, okay, that's all from me today. Do look in again on Sunday, but thanks for coming along today. Take it easy out there. Enjoy your day if you're out there on the bike, and stay shiny side up.